Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
I'm
You were
gonna
in
choose a topic.
you were in deep thought, Magnus. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a trick thing here. I got to choose a topic, and then there was a record starting, and I'm still pondering. But we're going to talk about Scrum today, and maybe we're going to observe all the people and initiatives that say they are Scrum, but not really. Because if you're in the agile space, stay tuned. You might not, yeah, I mean, because Scrum is really well defined. Whether you like it or not, Scrum is there. It's done. You don't need to do more Scrum guides, cheat sheets, claim you're a Scrum master and do different things. So if you want to stay tuned with people that have worked in Scrum, and Serge, I think, is both teaching and have more certifications than me, you might get a bit of solid, real info. So help me God, cross my heart. We're not going to lie for you, and we're not going to get any money. We're just trying to educate you. How does that sound for a topic today? Scrum.
Yeah, I like it's this one powerful word, right? Um, Absolutely like the idea of us looking into it. Because we're both working in the agile space and we both have indeed have experience with Scrum. So yeah, absolutely.
And we learn so
So
much from Scrum.
oh yeah. So yeah, not even only professionally. Also, I can add, and maybe that's a sidestep for somewhere in our recording. But I grew as a person too because of Agile and Scrum and being a
Yeah.
Scrum master.
So
Incredibly.
if I was someone that doesn't know about Agile or Scrum really, where should I start, do you think? Where's the source in your eye?
Oh, easy, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to start looking into Agile, it's very simple. There's this thing called the Manifesto for Agile Software Development, or in short, agilemanifesto.org. You can
Mm.
read the value statements and the 12 principles. That's your start. Um, and for Scrum, it's the Scrum Guide. And there's this website, scrumguides.org, as well, where you
Hmm.
can find a digital or a PDF. And I think it's even in multiple languages. And it's not a lot of text. Agile Manifesto is about 18 to 20 lines of text, and the Scrum Guide in its entirety is about 10.5 pages of text. So there's not it's not that you have to read a 200-page book to get into it.
And I don't have to get consultancies from LinkedIn. No, yeah, cool.
Yeah, so
Because
there's our trigger, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, because Anna, I need to make a confession. I started as a manager and learned about Agile, and it was really in line with how I think, anyways. But it was just discovering a new world, and then Scrum as well. And we said that we worked according to Scrum, and then one day I felt really bad because I realized I actually never really sat down and read the Scrum guide. And I'm guessing that is true for many of us. You find this training, certified Scrum Master 3-day training. Hopefully, you went to the right one, and they point you towards the Scrum guide. I guess I don't know. I just think it's a good anchor to have, or a mirror, or something to be clear about. Even if you're going to step away, you know why. So I read the Scrum guide, and whether you can find faults in it or not, I think I respect that it's the result of many iterations and great minds packing wisdom and information in that. It's like reading poetry. Some of the sentences in there has far-reaching consequences, and you need to read it with slowness. But that's all you need. All you need to do is finding concentration and time. If you spend 4 hours with the Scrum Guide and then again next day you go through it over again, that will be your first lesson. Don't, you know, what do you think about that, Serge? Is that a good idea?
Absolutely. So yeah, maybe linking to what you first said. I think I first read the Scrum Guide somewhere in 2012 or something. It's already 10 years ago, but then it didn't resonate with me. It triggered more questions than I could get answers, and I was in this classic service management, project management thinking back then in that paradigm, and I really couldn't see it, and I kind of put it away. But then I started really looking into it again, 2016ish, and then in the last 4 years. I once saw a post on LinkedIn about somebody who said, I read the Scrum Guide every month, again and again and again, because it is a good reminder and I get new little things out of it every time. And since then, I have a reminder in my agenda to read it every month. And I mostly read it every month.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's about an hour and a half read. It also depends probably how good your English is. But I love what you said and how carefully the words are chosen. I always read it on my iPad, so I can have markations on it. And every time I start with a blank Scrum guide and I start writing and and putting like the yellow fluid marker on it, and yeah, there are these short sentences that are so incredibly powerful in there, absolutely. And yeah, rereading it for me, it's not a good habit. I look kind of forward to it because I know that it's going to rekindle my knowledge in my head, and also I'll bring new emphasis to things every single time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, same for me. 30 years in the business, 20 years as a project member in various large projects in telecoms in all kinds of roles, and then 10 years serving in an agile organization company, being transformation leader both as a manager and then later as a scrum master. I too find new information or reminders, because here's the problem: your brain is full, right? It's full. There's an agenda, there's a stream, and you cannot keep it in your brain all the time. So the service of the Scrum Guide to me is that it right shifts my agenda all the time. What is important? You might not see the forest because all of the trees. That's a saying we have in the Sweden. You might lose yourself in the details, and then maybe possibly consider going back to the Scrum Guide, calm down, and just sit with it. I've been doing exercises with teams sometimes, and we just picked one thing, like the retrospective event, and surprisingly, it's not like a quick conversation. It oftentimes goes quite a long time, and we go into definitions of words and we reflect, and then we say, hey, that's not really what we're doing, is it? So there's much information in there, much knowledge and experience. You could debate probably and critique some stuff, but you cannot argue that there's a lot of experience built into the Scrum Guide. It's impossible. So if you're in the market space for Agile and Scrum more specifically, you can choose to go into the Scrum Guide to learn about it without any filters. You might need help to get to consume, as you said. Depending on where you are, it might not resonate with you at all. You don't understand what problem it might solve. So I'm just wondering whether we wouldn't talk about, so what is Scrum? We've only talked about how could you consume and learn for yourself without a lot of market nonsense, because, but what is Scrum? Go read the paper. but
Yeah, absolutely.
But in this podcast, though, why is Scrum there?
Yeah.
Why would I need it?
I'm gonna take one step back, Magnus.
Thank you. Please do.
Because what triggered us to take this topic is that there's so many misinformation, right? On LinkedIn, we see these cheat sheets and infographics, and so often these things are, well, let's say blatantly wrong. There's
yes.
Even, yeah.
Right? It's not only that they are not on point. It's like you're actually wrong.
There's a lot of really misinformation, and I've even seen this, like, and what bothers me most in that is that there are organizations that claim to be, we are the project management group, or we are some kind of high-level consultancy that solves all your problems, and then they publish wrong things about Scrum, and that really bothers me.
Yeah.
Um,
They are probably wrongly or legally not really able to do that, but they still use the word Scrum somewhere in there. I
um,
have I have
so
I have some message in LinkedIn from something, and it was not only when I started to really read. They are not Scrum at all. This is someone trying to make money out of Scrum, but they are teaching something else.
for example, so that's one thing. That's one side of the coin, right?
Mm.
But there's another side of the coin, and that side, and I've got in touch with a lot of these people recently. Those are people that are going into Scrum, looking into Scrum, willing to learn about Scrum, and being active about it on LinkedIn. And they also post these info sheets. But for me, I can't be angry with those people for the misinformation, right? Because they're willing to learn. And I engage with a lot of these people now and point out what's not right, or I invite them to read the Scrum Guide and then look at the differences. Um, and those become learning opportunities and learning conversations even, because I engage quite often with these people. So for me, there's a difference. There's the misinformation by organizations claiming to bring you the truth, and there's the misinformation by people who are willing to learn about Scrum and that are even vulnerable enough to be wrong about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I just, before we go into the what is Scrum question, I wanted to point that out, because for me there's a difference between those two.
Very good.
There's this
Then
human,
I get a
yeah.
question. And why do you think it is? Why is that we all learn Scrum and we get it wrong at the start? Why is that? To me, it seems to be it's a paradigm shift
Oh yeah,
compared with
absolutely.
what I learned in school or how companies work. There's this arena where predictability is possible. You can plan out how to do this complicated work of, well, I don't know, manufacturing lumber or sawn products or mining industry, but there's an arena where we cannot do that. But we're trying to reuse those, so it really tricks your brain. You need to work with something else, empirical thinking, empirical experience.
Uh,
How would you define Scrum? Why is it there? Are we ready to go in there first, or
yeah. I have a. I'm going to switch off the other thought. So let's
yes?
go into the what is Scrum question. So I'm gonna try to explain it as easily as possible, as briefly as possible. So my mom, who's wandering somewhere around here, would also understand it. So in a world of complex work, of knowledge work, of creating things, um, today we find ourselves in a space where we can't know everything. We can't exactly know what the customer exactly wants. We can't exactly know how we're going to build it yet. But if we have a starting point, a starting idea of what problem we want to solve, we can start working on it. So in that complex space, we start creating something in short bursts of work, in iterations, and in each iteration we give it in the hands of the people that we wanted to use. We get feedback and we adapt. So it's this constant inspection and adaptation,
Mm-hmm.
which is literally in the Scrum Guide, around the product that we're trying to build.
Mm-hmm.
So building the right thing, building it right at the right level of quality, and getting it out there in iterations. So it's iteratively, incrementally building the product. And Scrum has a really specific process for that. But it's all around getting better and learning about your product, learning about your way of working, and getting better at doing it.
In close collaboration with customer.
Absolutely.
Beautiful, excellent. I seem to remember that Scrum is an inspect and adapt framework for work on complex products. Don't sue me if I got it wrong, but that was, at least in one version of it, it was the phrase. To unpack that, I mean, why is that hard to embrace? Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I work with so-called agile transformations, and it seems that this is so hard to grasp for some people. but I don't. It's really interesting to me because it's not that complicated to understand that it's complicated and complex, and yet, and I think
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you're in stress, that's a big fat antidote to getting this. If you're in high demand, but I want to know what my revenue is going to look like exactly in 3 months' time. I need that money. Well, of course you do, but you cannot predict it. You have a knowledge threshold. But I don't want my knowledge threshold. And the thing is, I think, is that it's so subconscious. We're so automated. We're so habitually conditioned to believe that we can calculate it. Because that there's the power of calculating things and planning it out. Don't throw that out. That's a big, powerful tool. It's just not entirely applicable to all situations. There are other tools that works better, as you said. As you said.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Um, but we come now. We're touching a lot of stuff that we talked about in our past recordings, right? We know things are complex. We know that we have a lot of interdependence. That there's no linear way to get somewhere anymore, right? It's a systems
Wow.
thinking exercise. So if I turn a knob here, I don't exactly know what's going to happen there because there's system. Yeah, let's call it a system behind it, right? It's an organic thing. It's the same with developing a new product and especially creating software. And Scrum helps you with that in embracing the unknown. But I think there's the difficulty in that paradigm shift is that difficulty to let go of control
Oh,
because we have
yes.
been told, we have been conditioned from kindergarten on that control is what we need. We need to be able to predict. And then we come into a business world where we are driven by predicting profit, and that even like shareholder driven companies are even punished if they don't make the prediction, and you cannot know it. A prediction is a best possible guess with the information you have in your hand at a certain point in time, but 2 minutes later that information can be different, so your prediction is off. And that's the whole inspecting and adapting thing. That's the idea that's behind it for me. But I think for a lot of leadership people and people in general, it's the difficulty is to let go of that false sense of control, because that's basically what it is, the sense of control that we have, and then turning that. And I'm gonna quote Guy Maslin, who's a really super smart guy from New Zealand, and I want to invite you to follow him because his content is incredible, really. He wrote on LinkedIn last week. We can either choose between control or trust, and each has their perks. Each has their positive and negative sides. But in the complex world, trust will work better for you. But it's scary, and I think that scary space is where a lot of people don't dare to step in, or not yet, at least.
Oh, now we're getting somewhere. So now we're saying that scary, control, and we're looking, interestingly enough, on emotions. Surely we're here to talk about the scientific management to work on complex products, are we not? The empirical process control that Scrum promises, but we're talking about emotions. But hey, that's who we are. People have emotions, and fear is there and it's real. And we often try to shy away. If I would say to someone, do you feel fearful? They would probably not say yes, because their conscious mind is not really aware that they are constantly choosing the agenda to get into more control, because it feels uncomfortable to accept, to fully accept that we cannot know, that we have a knowledge threshold, and the only way is to move forward in a reasonably informed way, which, to me, Scrum. So that guy, we should add him to the links here. There's another one I'm thinking of, Mike Rother. He has published work on Toyota Karas, or working with scientific thinking to build the habit, because he has pointed to it feels uncomfortable because we're not used to think that way. But he introduced that term, knowledge threshold. I think it's workable, like the words you're using. We have a knowledge threshold, so then we need to build an hypothesis. We move forward, we get the feedback, we validate or invalidate or adjust our hypothesis, then we make a new iteration or sprint. And the more we practice this, the more comfortable we are, the more efficient and effective we are to say, hey guys, you know what? We need to stop debating this. We are debating uncertainties and we can never get away from that. We need to really look at that. And some skilled people are really saying that it's about uncertainty management. So you're weighing trade-off analysis. And sometimes, it makes you move forward instead because it's more costly to try to predict. It's more costly to predict. And Scrum and Agile, by the way, some think it's fussy. No, it's the contrary. Given a complex context with high degrees of uncertainty, my friend, please consider doing Scrum, because Scrum is getting the most control you can have given the circumstances. That's the point of Agile. Agile is not about letting go of control. It's about skillfully and mathematically proven, scientifically proven to be the best way to embrace uncertainty and navigate the uncertain space with meaningful tools, interactions. It's built in. That's the point. To me. There are many points, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But I love what you say, because it's in Agile, and especially in Scrum, we iteratively and incrementally build our product.
Mm-hmm.
But we also iteratively and incrementally build control. Because by empirically, and it's never going to be the sense of control like we know it today, right? But we build that trust because of that empirical evidence-based way of going forward. We know where we are. We will know better where we are going to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it will never be 100% clear, but it will become clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer. The thing is that when we start, we are, let's say, zero predictable, but we have a direction and we go in that direction. And as we progress, we build that predictability of what we can deliver in how much time. And it's never going to be 100%, but we get better at it. So, and for me, building up that predictability is also building up trust. And then maybe I said something wrong. No, we're not building control. We don't need control anymore, because we're building trust. We're building trust with our customers, and because they will be happy, we can build trust with our leadership, and they will make money out of it. So it's also it's an incremental building of trust, maybe.
And I'm hearing you saying that, and in that space, there will be fewer and fewer questions about how it will look in 3 months' time. Because we're proven that we are doing the best we can given the circumstances. We might not succeed fully each sprint, but we're building trust that this is the best path forward in an unpredictable landscape. Yeah, good. That's what really great. Is there a wrap we should do? I'm noticing time, 23 minutes. Are we going to close this?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think this is the time.
I think we should do a wrap. There's so much more to unpack. Maybe we can do a whole series about Scrum, and also why it sometimes doesn't work and what you can do with that, and why not rigorously following the Scrum guide is also a good idea. But so the wrap for me is twofold. Firstly, if you want to learn about Scrum, this is the simplest one. If you want to learn about Scrum, don't just Google it and go look at the infographics. Go to scrumguides.org and read the Scrum guide. That's it. 10.5 pages of text. Will take you an hour to 90 minutes to thoroughly read it. And if you have questions about it, you can reach out to Magnus and me, and we'll be really happy to help. So that's the first thing. And then the second part is, what is Scrum? Well, in our complex world where we want to build new products, we try that out iteratively and incrementally and being close to the customer. And then we haven't even touched upon self-management yet, but that we talked about in our previous episodes. So if you want to know more about that, just go back to episode 14 and you'll get that as well. So that's a lot of words for a wrap. So what do you want to add, Magnus?
My friend, if you're new to this world as was I, please consider this to be a complete paradigm shift. Don't try to rush to, oh, now I get it. I've pictured this and I pull in known categories and map it. If you're from a linear classical way of thinking, you will lose the finer points there. You will actually lose the major point. The world is unpredictable, and you need to let go and accept. Start there, and this is not complicated to learn, but you need to accept that fundament. That will make your journey easier. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for
and
being here,
let's do
Magnus.
Scrum and see if we can get a discussion going. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
There's much to be said. It's really not that hard, and yet it is hard.
It's a world of contradictions, but that's for another
It
episode.
is. Thanks for viewing today, guys
See you soon.
and girls. Give us our feedback. What was wrong? What was right? What resonated or not? Love to hear from you. Take care. Thanks for viewing.